and Mother's Day are the three biggies in the church year. And so it's great to have you with us today. On this Sunday, we recognize these primal relationships that are family and talk about how those primal relationships also exist within church. We celebrate the one person who brought us into this world, and for some, very few of us, that was the only gift she gave us, an immense gift it was. For most of us, though, she's gifted us in many, many ways, and so it's right to stop and pause and thank God for the gift of our mother. I hope that you've had a good mother. I hope that you have not just a good mother, but I hope you have good mothers in your life, because you need more than one mother in your life, folks who can care for you. And I think that's what the role that the church plays in our society oftentimes is as a family of God, men and women in relationship with one another because of their relationship with the Good Shepherd and shepherding one another. And not only is it Mother's Day, speaking of the Good Shepherd, it's also the Sunday of the Good Shepherd. Every year on the fourth Sunday we get one of the readings from John 10. This year we don't get the Shepherd reading, we get the Gate reading. Whole different reading, of course, but it's still Good Shepherd Sunday, even if we don't talk specifically about I am the Good Shepherd. Christ is our shepherd. It's a good combination of celebrations. Many of our mothers, and certainly mine, was a shepherd for my life, shielding and helping and encouraging and challenging and protecting me in my life. Still does, or at least still tries to. And so we're grateful for that. Lots of imagery. She does, and she still does. She's small but mighty. Almost all of our readings have some imagery of shepherding and sheep in them. In fact, our psalm assigned for the day is Psalm 23, the shepherd psalm. We'll be singing it today rather than saying it together. In the section of John chapter 10 that we read, we hear that Jesus is the gate for the sheep, and he's the shepherd. Now, in a country pasture, you heard a little bit about the city sheepfold, where all the sheep would be commingled and they would be called forth by the shepherd and brought out, so they'd be separated in the morning, but at night they were kept together in the sheepfold. In the country pasture, there were sort of low walls with no gate in front of it, and the sheep would be herded into this kind of low-walled circle, and the shepherd would actually lie down over what was considered the opening, or the door. There wasn't a door or gate like that. The shepherd himself would lie down over it. And so Jesus is picking up on that image and saying, get it? I'm the gate. I'm the doorway for the sheep. If you climb in another way, you're not legit. The only ones that are legit are the ones who come through the gate, and they don't understand it, so he has to give it even more specific terms, saying, I am the gate for all the sheep. I think there's a lot of intimate terms, as I said to the kids that are this morning, in this reading, that there's calling, there's a recognition of voice, leading and following, offering of life and being saved. I think mothers and women in general know a few things about those kind of intimate terms and what those things mean, more than oftentimes our male counterparts. They know a thing or two about making personal sacrifices, like the Good Shepherd. They know a thing or two about watching doors open and close. I don't mean just the ones that slam, where you say, why were you born in a barn? My mother used that one an awful lot with us. And I said, almost, Mom, almost. But that watching the doorways of our transitions. Think about how, if you had a good mother, how your mother has been a part of all those transitions. Coming home from college for home-cooked meals, going on the way to college, being handed a bundle of clean clothes that I had nothing to do with other than I wore them and made them dirty, and she miraculously handed them back to me clean. They know something about lying in the way of things, protecting their children, watching their children grow and mature and challenging and protecting them, safeguarding loved ones, offering their lives to better the lives of their children and their families. They know about these things. The Bible says that the father is the spiritual leader of the household. Now, I agree with the Bible, but I do know that some of the women, especially that I've known in this congregation, are probably more equipped to be the spiritual head of the household. And certainly, I think in the absence of male leadership, then I think the female should be providing that kind of leadership. And I thank God in this congregation that we have strong, spiritually based women leading the congregation. In our gospel reading from John 10, we learn that Jesus has come so that his followers might have life, but not just life in general, life abundant. One of our favorite passages is in verse 9. I have come that they may have life and know it abundantly. Life obviously is good, desirable, important. How much more, though, the quality of abundant life. Think about what abundant life would mean to you. Abundant life is more than existing, it's flourishing. It's more than sustaining, it's thriving, it's having a sense of meaning and purpose and fulfillment and value in life. Who doesn't desire abundant life? I think we all do. We regularly make all kinds of sacrifices for what we see as an abundant life in a hope to achieve or purchase or somehow barter for the kind of life that we think we want to have. We go to certain schools. We position our careers. We purchase cars. We live in particular neighborhoods. We buy lottery tickets, even join specific community groups, even sometimes joining specific churches because we see that it may be an avenue to achieve the kind of life that we would like to have. I took a class last summer at COU and had a bunch of the business faculty involved in it, and they were talking about marketing and how marketing in the United States has shifted over the last few years, and that it shifted from making promises about the brand and its quality to making promises about a quality of life. I think the one who makes the biggest claims about that is Starbucks. If you watch their ads, you have no idea they're actually selling you coffee because they're selling you an experience. They're selling you a quality of life. Watch their newest ad. I had to actually look twice at the end when they say they give you half off on Frappuccinos at the end. I said, what commercial is this? All the way through the commercial, I had no idea. It was just about having a good life, an abundant life. They're selling experiences. I think oftentimes the abundant life that we're looking for we'll sell out for in what we call in America the good life, however that looks. Even though the good life may be devoid of any of the true value of goodness, we still seek it. We all do. I do. If we think about it honestly, the choices we've made, the strategies we've employed, the things we've relied upon to bring us authentic, abundant life, have they satisfied us? The fact of the matter is, after all the searching and shopping and seeking, we still fall far short of the experience sometimes of the abundant life that Jesus is talking about. Maybe you remember some of those disillusionments. I remember one of my first. I believe it was an English class assignment when I was in maybe elementary school. We had to write to a company and request either product information or place an order or ask some kind of question about the company or give some kind of input. And the whole point wasn't that we'd actually do it, but we did actually do it. We sent it in the mail. It was about writing a letter and filling out an envelope and putting a stamp on, return address. It was learning about all those things. And I did it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was a huge comic book fan at the time. And in the comic books, there was this advertisement every month, and I so was dying for it, but it was so out of my reach. It was $5.99. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the money for it. It just was not possible. And it was this. For $5.99, you could own your own monster. How cool would that be? I was like 5th grade, all right? I mean, I can kind of see it still. It's kind of cool still. All right. So I wrote my letter, and somehow, I don't know how, my parents agreed to write a check for $5.99 so I could get my own personal monster. I can't believe my mother allowed it to this day, but she did. And I waited eagerly for it. I was going to have my own monster. I was bragging at school. I'm going to have my own monster. And then one day it showed up in a tube. I'm like, a monster in a tube? Was it assemble, add water? Finally, I opened it up to find a glow-in-the-dark poster. Frankenstein. Oh, he was menacing. He was about 7 foot tall. He fit in the back of my door just perfectly. But I had to stick on the glow-in-the-dark eyes and teeth and those sorts of things. You can imagine it wasn't what I was promised. You can imagine that my excitement, my bragging, my thinking about training my own monster, my dreams of having a monster do my own bidding would turn to disappointment, despair, and disillusionment as I taped up the one-dimensional Frankenstein poster on the back of my door. It was not what I had hoped for. And if I'm honest, if I have to really admit that typically it's kind of been that way, to a far lesser degree, of course, with almost everything that I've ever bought because I thought it would make me feel good. It's short-lived. Things aren't the basis of abundant life. Perhaps we don't really know how to achieve that abundant life, and maybe there's the problem as we're trying to achieve it all along. Or perhaps we're afraid of what it takes to receive it. Why? Well, I would suspect that an authentic, abundant life, which Jesus here describes as flowing from a relationship with Jesus through him to God, demands that we are more vulnerable than we are prepared to be. I mean, so much of our lives is about protecting ourselves. I think of the advice I give to my own sons. Oftentimes, it's about how to protect themselves, giving the impression that we really do have it all together, and guarding ourselves from the vulnerability that maybe we don't. The difficulty, though, is that we cannot experience abundant life without exposing or even lifting up those vulnerabilities that we're trying to protect. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? The truth of the matter is, as Irene Brown in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, said, we cannot selectively numb. We cannot selectively numb. And in trying to protect ourselves from hurt and disappointment, we've so numbed ourselves that we've cut ourselves off from the opportunity to really feel alive sometimes, to make deep and life-changing relationships and connections with other people, even with God, because we're guarding all the time. Think about it. How much of our life is caught up in that kind of double bind, wanting intimacy and wanting honesty in our relationships with each other as much as with God, and yet simultaneously kind of holding back, not risking exposing ourselves fully to other people for the fear that they might reject us. And it's a legitimate fear, isn't it? Because we've been rejected. We know what it feels like. We don't want it to happen again. And so we shield ourselves with sort of an emotional armor or withdraw, living half-truths, sometimes living full untruths about ourselves, lies outright, just to protect who we are at the core of ourselves. Yet knowing that as long as we are not honest about who we are, we can never trust the love and acceptance that other people give us because they don't really know us. And we wonder, don't we, if they really knew, would they really love us? Would they really accept us? It's into this very real human condition that every one of us struggles with. It's into this dilemma that God embraces us with incarnation. Think about the risk that God took to himself. This shepherd of our souls, as we say today, this one who was the teacher of love and peace, came in amongst us and was rejected and killed on a cross for our sake. He suffered for us and he suffered with us. He, among all of us, knows the dark recesses of what makes us who we are. And yet, he continues to come into our story. He continues to desire to be among us. He continues to be so intimate with us that he even knows that dark voice in us. And even that darkness will respond to him as a sheep does to a shepherd. And when he's resurrected, he comes bearing that peace that he has offered to us all along, accompanied with the promise that his love is greater than fear, and that his new life is greater than death. We find, like any real relationship, that we can't achieve that. We can't make it happen. Have you ever tried to make someone love you? How'd that go? You find out pretty quick that they're a free agent. Have you ever tried to make someone love you? It's really amazingly difficult. Now, you can try to make someone not love you, and that's pretty easy to do. We can mess things up pretty fast. But your wife, your husband, your parent, your child's love, it's not a given. It's a gift. We cannot make someone love us. It's a gift. And in this case, the abundant life that Jesus talks about in John 10 is a promise from Jesus himself, a promise about a gift. Abundant life is not something that we can achieve or earn or barter or buy. It's a gift. It's a sheer gift of God's grace, of a God who's willing to lay down his life for us. That's the power of the Christian story, is that this God is willing to lay himself out for each of us. There are so many, as Jesus called them, bandits and thieves in the world trying to rob those things from us, aren't they? Some of them even live inside of my own skin and take myself out. I imagine that's probably true for you, and would cheat us of the abundance. And so Jesus comes as a gatekeeper, he says. He's a good shepherd, the one who knows his sheep intimately and truly, who calls them by name. Like a shepherd inspecting his sheep as he puts them into the country sheepfold, he looks at each one. He knows it, and they know him. It may be finding out some difficult truths about us, but what grace is about is God's embrace of those things and longing to make us whole again and healing that which is wounded, redeeming us, we call it, by God's mercy and God's love. When we know the shepherd's voice and we respond to him, our lives begin to move from a search for the good life to one of serving God's abundant life. Have you ever noticed that the things that make you happiest and longest isn't the good things you can get, but it's the good things that you can give? Have you ever noticed that strange paradox? I was talking with someone the other day about the Agoura Hills Community Service Day, and they were saying, I had such a great time. I felt kind of guilty. You felt guilty for having a great time at the Community Service Day. Yeah, I thought it would be more work, and it wasn't supposed to be fun because it was work. But you get it. Goodness is its own reward. When we seek God's abundant life, it doesn't lead us to our own private heaven inside. It leads us to God's desire for right relationship with one another. It leads to pouring ourselves out for one another. And in that, he says, you will find abundant life, just as the shepherd won the flock, not by preserving his life, but by laying his life down for us. That's what it means to also follow in his way. If you were reading 1 Peter with me, it's to follow his example, a self-sacrificing example. It means to be also faithful under shepherds, if you will. Fathers and mothers, men and women, faithful people, leading others to see the abundant shepherd in this life, readying them for the gift of abundant life that comes from that relationship with our good shepherd. Amen.